Have you ever noticed that some people seem to just be playing a totally different game when it comes to building wealth? When I look at people that have generated $100 million in a single lifetime or $1 billion in a single lifetime, okay, they're doing something differently that leads them to spend the same amount of time as the rest of us, that allows them to open up this exponential value creation, beyond, trading time for money or anything else. Okay, in this video, we're going to unpack what those three skill sets are and how you can nurture and develop them in your own life. Okay, my name is Walker Deibel. I'm the Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling author of Buy Then Build, creator of Acquisition Lab, and founder of Build Wealth. These three skill sets, they're simple to understand, but they're difficult to master. The first is entrepreneurship, or owning and operating a business. Okay, the second is deal making, right? So it's people who essentially marry opportunity and capital for themselves and others. Okay, and the third is investor. So whether you're an accredited investor making an investment into a private market syndication, or a family office kind of dictating like which deals get done, it's the people that ultimately are trying to use their money to, work as hard as they do in order to gain those returns. Okay, and by doing so, they're voting essentially on which deals get done, which vehicles get gas in the tank. Okay, let's start at the beginning. Let's break these down. Number one, entrepreneurship. So look, when I was growing up, like, owning businesses was not like something that was foreign to me. Both of my grandfathers owned their own company. Both of my uncles on my dad's side owned their own company. My cousins bought their own company. My dad owned his own company. It was just, they'd come together for Thanksgiving, and it was like a economic forum on, small business environment. But I think the point is my grandfather, Bob Deibel, used to take me out for breakfast when I was like single digits, like 8, 9, whatever years old. He'd take me out for pancakes, and he would just give me a treatment. And he'd say things like, don't ever go in the retail business, and whatever. And like, the big lesson was, look, the only way to build real wealth for yourself and your family is to own a business. Full stop. I mean, this was the message over and over again. And what he was trying to say to me, I think, was something different, which is owning a business has a lever. Okay. And, in Buy Then Build, we talk about using bank debt and using leverage in order to acquire assets. Sure, there's some deal making in there. But what he meant was, when you have a job, you're trading time for money. Okay. I give you time, you give me money. That's our arrangement. When you own a business, what happens is a few things. One, you form the owner mindset. Okay, like you start to take responsibility for the whole vehicle overall, and you spend your time operating in the business. This is the operator business. This is the one that is pushing the business forward, and by doing so, you have a lever. Okay, and that lever is people. Okay, so if you want to build something bigger than yourself, then like you really need a team of people working towards that goal. Okay, and when you take ownership, when you build the ownership mindset, and you realize this team needs to be led, when you realize these projects need to be managed, okay, and you can create a vision about where you're going and get the right people in the right seats and move and operate that project forward. What you're also doing here is that you're not only building something bigger than yourself, but because it's your vision and you're putting the time and money into it up front, you ultimately own the asset on your personal balance sheet. So all of those people's labors, all of the profits that come from those people's labors end up in something that you own that grows bigger than yourself and bigger on your personal financial statement than what you can do, with a normal sort of W-2 job. Okay. And I think that also forgive the expression, but like the sort of ninja move is, being able to take that leap and finding success in business ownership and entrepreneurship. You figure out that everything's really kind of made up, right? It's all about like, how do I take very calculated risks and then use those risks to build things of value that other people want to consume in some way, and then we can sort of build that and move forward from there. And it is a cycle that is a flywheel that builds momentum over time. Number two is deal maker. Okay, in deal maker, the lever they provide is access. Let me give you an example. One of these breakfasts that I was having with my grandfather when I was about 12, he said, okay, listen, your uncle and I bought a company last week. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, it's in Southern Illinois. Let's go see it after breakfast. So we got in the car, drove out there, and I remember looking at this big manufacturing building and just thinking to myself, like, wow, so I asked him, I said, how did you find a business to buy? And he said, Walker, if you want to buy a business, you just call a business broker. Okay. I was 12 years old. This was the 80s, and I was like a business broker. So I didn't know what was cooler. Was it cooler that like they bought a manufacturing company that is like a box that makes money? Or was it cooler that there was some guy that was, the broker that got this deal, packaged it all together, and sold it to my grandfather and my uncle? And I figured that that guy probably made a commission that was very sizable, similar to like a real estate agent. I'm 12 when this whole opportunity, was open to me. And so I remember thinking, I'm not sure if I want to buy the business or if I want to actually be the broker. I've had an opportunity to do both, okay? And the thing is, when you think about investment bankers, okay, what I want you to think about is the deal maker. When you think about M&A advisors, business brokers, all of these different types of people. In investment banking, whether they're packaging up private market deals and, taking them out to sell, or they're raising capital for, growth capital, or they're taking a company public, all of these things is essentially packaging the deal and, marrying it to a capital stack that is appropriate for, that size deal and that size market with those variables, okay? And then they've got the relationships to actually pull the deal together and get it done. So they're marrying the opportunity, they're, providing access to the opportunity and marrying that opportunity to capital, understanding everyone's incentives in the game, and then getting that deal to closure, okay? That's what deal making is, and that's where a lot of value is created for a lot of people. Third is the investor skill set. Now, here's the thing. You obviously don't start here. You need to build wealth along the way, maybe in one of the first two components or, high-paying W-2 job. But ultimately, you've got to be able to build enough cash in order to play the investor role. Look, I wish I was making this up. I'm not that smart, but we've all read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the number one, book on, personal finance in the world. And, ultimately, he's got his cash flow quadrants, and we're all trying to get to the right side, right? Which is ultimately business ownership and investing. Those are the two things on the right side. So the reason why investing is so powerful is, first and foremost, it's because when you start playing the investing game at the real level, okay, your capital starts to work just as hard as you do. So, right, when you're starting out, we put it in the stock market or whatever, and, put it in savings accounts, bonds, whatever, and it might be, gaining 1% or 2 along the way. Maybe there's a good year in the stock market, it works out. But when you start putting your capital to work in private deals, okay, what happens is that you become an owner in deals with supply, demand, imbalance, and you are going to be able to look at deals in the same way a deal maker can. Look at entrepreneurs the same way a deal maker can, but you're coming in with the critical thinking skills and you're putting your chips on the table to back certain projects. This is my pizza by the slice strategy, right? And ultimately, when you control the capital, you control the deal, okay? And so you have control over the whole thing in terms of what deals are getting done, what deals are getting funded, and you're going to have some wiggle room in terms of like how that deal gets done, right? So let's compound these together, okay? Look, Buy Then Build was all about marrying the investor and entrepreneur skill sets together towards acquisition entrepreneurship, right? But along the way, you need to start understanding like what deals look like how do I think about buying a business and all of these things? How do I evaluate? How do I analyze? What are those tool sets? How do I find deals? So you're indirectly forming the deal making skill set as well, right? And then ultimately when you buy that business, you're operating it and you become the entrepreneur and build the owner mindset and all the rest of it. You're investing capital in it, you're leveraging capital. Okay, you're providing the capital, you're running the business, and you're learning deal making. Acquisition entrepreneurship is the correct lane for actually learning all three of these skill sets. And ultimately, all of these skill sets are really just geared towards providing value, right? Creating value from scratch. And when you can create value out of thin air, that's where the real game is played. If you want to buy a business in the next 1 to 24 months, we built Acquisition Lab to be the elite provider, even though we started the whole industry, okay? We have lots of copycats out there today. I realize it's a noisy market, but what you need to understand is, like, after I wrote the book, like, to this day, I get 20 calls a week. They're like, Walker, we just want to learn about what you did and how to do it ourselves. Well, I can't do that at scale, right? So I hired a curriculum designer who does accredited curriculum programs, okay? And certification programs and said, look, this isn't like I'm an entrepreneur, buy my online course. Like I want to build, a real accelerator that, that's going to rival like Y Combinator or, a self-funded searcher having an actual program at Harvard or Stanford or something. That's what we built with the curriculum. And that was our anchor. Okay. But We know what it really takes to succeed, and we're not in the job of separating people from their money. Our unit of measure internally is not revenue. Okay, it's two things. It's member to acquisition ratio and reviews from members. Those are the two things. Are we providing value, and are we getting them to their goal? And I'm happy to report our results are unrivaled. We knew that at the beginning, but we needed to let that play out. And the reason why is because we truly vet in terms of who gets accepted into the program. So when you set up a strategy call with us, this isn't like a lightly veiled sales call where we're trying to get you to do something. Okay. If you want to buy a company and you're sure about it, and this is what you want to do, call us, because in your strategy call, we will figure out if we can help you and like what you're trying to do, if it's realistic or not. Okay. World-class education, vetted community, which by the way, was the little thing that I didn't understand at the beginning. That having a vetted community has just really elevated our group. And it's like the most fun I've ever had, rocking out with people who have now closed almost $500 million in deals, right? So in small businesses for themselves. We take no kickbacks. We don't invest in deals. We don't make loans to deals. None of these things. We exist intrinsically for buyers only. All right. And that's how we make money. So ultimately, we've got 14 advisors on staff. Everyone's done it before. Private Slack channel. We've got all the tools, the community, the language, the education, and we run in cohorts so that you can meet the community first at a very intimate level through the intensive, before you join the overall lab to get you to your goal. Okay. Check it out, acquisitionlab.com. We'll see you on the inside.